Within 3 months, we generated 27 million of pipeline and closed a deal with a top tier brand. That signal immediately said, okay, this is going to work.
I think this is a journey that so many businesses are trying to go on. How do you execute on that?
Just because something's easy to measure doesn't mean that that's how we should be hung up on measuring. Marketing attribution in the old, MQL to SQL and pipeline waterfall, it's just broken.
Welcome to the REV UP Rebellion, the podcast for revenue leaders rewriting the rules of growth. I'm your host, Abbie White. Today we've got with us Kamila Hutchison, who is Global Go-to-Market Lead for CHG-Meridian. CHG-Meridian are a financial services company. And the reason I wanted Kamila to come and share her story with us is because over the past 18 months, they've been going through a marketing transformation and really shaken up how they go to market. They've embraced account-based marketing, and they have seen the most staggering and phenomenal results that you are going to hear about in this episode. So in this conversation, we really unpack the blueprint for their success throughout that journey. So we always like to start with our guests by asking, what's something that you want to rebel against? Or maybe it's a conversation that you feel we need to be having more often. You wish more revenue leaders around the table were having that conversation. From your lens, from what you're seeing, what do you think that is for you?
Yeah, actually, something's been driving me crazy lately. And I really feel like we need to talk about how we can measure the impact and effectiveness of marketing in a different way. Just because something's easy to measure doesn't mean that that's how we should be hung up on measuring our effectiveness and contribution to generating pipeline and revenue. For me, I see, marketing attribution in the old MQL to SQL and pipeline waterfall, it's just broken. It's not the way that buyers buy these days, and it's not linear. And just because 18 months ago someone downloaded a white paper and then we end up seeing an opportunity, it doesn't mean that that's actually marketing's touchdown that they should be celebrating. It's a team sport, and it's about creating impact and value across the entire value chain. And so I'm rethinking how we measure marketing contribution rather than attribution. I'm thinking about contribution and really looking at where we're creating value to, yes, capture leads, because we have to capture leads. But before that, it's about brand. It's about getting our message out there so that customers know who we are, they're brand aware, they're solution aware, and they're problem aware. They realize they have a problem that needs solving. And then if we then become the brand that they think about when they need what we can solve, then we've done our job. And then it's about not only generating leads, but speeding up pipeline velocity. It's about helping drive conversion. It's about helping create expansion opportunities and retention. And so I've really changed my thinking about how can we deploy our marketing and sales resources across the entire value chain to work in alignment and to, really measure things throughout the entire value chain and not just, a metric at the front end. So that's kind of been what I've been hung up on lately. And I think that we really need to talk about, we're in 2025, buyers are behaving very differently these days. And I think we should be adjusting how we measure performance.
I really can relate to that, because I think I always used to think of like the beautiful, and you've seen me talk about it, like the beautiful value ladder that we used to really think that people went through. And I saw a really good Gartner diagram of this recently that showed what the viewpoint is on the current buyer journey. And it was just basically this giant mess of like stop, start, engage, not engage, intent signals, then pause a bit and then re-go again. And it's like that complex journey. Like you said, it's kind of quite hard now when you're thinking about that. So I like that mindset of the contribution. I've got to ask you about that though as a follow-up question. Have you found you've had any pushback on that? Because I think, and I include myself in this, we always want to measure ROI. We always want to look at the measurements and the numbers, and we've kind of been trained to do so. And people particularly look at marketing spend and go, well, did we get value out of that? So if you've internally changed the mindset a little bit towards contribution rather than attribution, have you had to navigate that?
Yes, and it's a journey that I'm still on. When I look at our global organization. So we're in 32 markets, and every country is at a different level of maturity. Every, we've got marketers that are very skilled in certain areas, and some are excellent at performance marketing, some are amazing at customer partner engagement and events, and so they obviously play to their strengths. I think what I've had to figure out is, how do we measure that value across everyone's contribution, not just trying to put people in one sort of in one block or pigeonhole them in a certain way. There is, people sometimes, I think, still think that marketing's job is the colouring in department, and we just generate leads and that's all we do. But we are a lot more aligned these days. There is a lot more visibility to the value that marketing is making, and it's a journey. It's really more communication, more data, and more proof of the impact that we're creating.
One of the reasons I sort of begged you to come on the podcast and was so excited when you said yes was you had shared with me when we caught up over lunch some of the CHG-Meridian story around how you'd been going on a global marketing transformation program, how you'd started embedding ABM. You talked to me about some of the results you were getting, and I just honestly, my jaw was dropped to the floor, because the success you've had and just what you have done, it really stood out for me amongst all the businesses I speak to. And I just had a huge amount of respect for your journey, and I just had to get you on to talk about it. So before we sort of deep dive into some of that and hopefully sort of take some of the learnings and lessons from it, can you at a high level give us a bit of an understanding around the transformation journey that you've been on, to give everyone context?
Yeah, absolutely. And journey is the key word, because we're still on the journey. But I guess almost 2 years ago now, I was given the opportunity to identify some technology and to build out essentially an ABM go-to-market process. And so we landed on 6 Sense as our vendor of choice, and we we did a pilot and agreed that this was going to be how we were going to roll out. And before rolling out this project, we really understood that it really needed alignment from both sales and marketing. And so in a nutshell, we transformed how we talk about our account planning with regards to moving to really focusing on target accounts. We aligned both our sales and marketing efforts on the same groups of accounts. And I think it was you that once said that some LinkedIn data was that the crossover between sales and marketing, fishing in completely different ponds, and there was very little crossover between their activities.
It was less than 30% or something.
Yes. And so that actually stuck in my head, where we really need to align, because even though, we're in 32 markets, we've only got 300 salespeople globally. And that's not a lot of boots on the ground when you think about it, supported by roughly 30 marketers. And so we need to be very focused and specific on the accounts that we target. Not only that, we're in financial services, so we have to focus on those accounts that we're happy to extend credit to. And so ABM completely made sense for us. And the transformation was more about leading change than actually rolling out technology. Yeah, a lot of it was about implementation and setup and training, but it was really aligning people to just firstly signal-based selling, knowing how to read the data, and also knowing how to really build and segment our audiences from a marketing perspective, so that we could really support sales where they actually were hunting and where they were prospecting, so that we could really amplify the results.
And on that note of results, before we dive into, you said there's sales and marketing alignment so many times, which is my love language. So we'll definitely come back to that.
Yeah.
But if I work backwards in terms of results, one of the things that stood out for me when you talked about the journey when we caught up was whoa, you guys have really hit some results. And I think, we were talking about it before, I think this is a journey that so many businesses are trying to go on. Everyone's at a different stage. But I feel whilst you might still be on the journey, I still feel you guys have had some massive proof in the pudding. And I appreciate you might not be able to talk about the intricacies of it, but at a high level, can you give us a view of some of the results from the transformation?
Sure. So when we really knew this was going to work, we did a pilot actually here in Australia, and we had a small team that we enabled with the platform, and within 3 months we generated 27 million of pipeline and closed a deal with a top tier brand. So it was like that signal immediately said, okay, this is going to work. And what we did once we rolled out globally, several months ago, I pulled some analysis of the cohort of license users that had the platform and tracked their quarterly average opportunity volume that they were creating pre-rollout and then post. We had a 400% increase in opportunity volume across that cohort of sellers. So it's impressive results. And for us, it's all about continuing to embed the behaviors and embed, obviously you roll out a tool, it's nice and shiny at the beginning. And then, people tend to fall into old habits. So for us now, we're moving into like constant sales enablement, as well as, upskilling our marketing team to continue to test and learn and explore the platform so that we can continue to get better and better results.
That's one hell of a result already. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Even our producer Lachlan, I saw, was nodding his head and so you mentioned there several times as you're starting to unpack the story with us, sales and marketing alignment.
Yes.
This for me is the age-old thing that, you mentioned some of the data points. It was LinkedIn who showed, sales and marketing are targeting over 70% of the time, I think it is, off the top of my head, different audiences on the platform. I think something like 50% of leads from marketing don't get followed up on from sales. It's kind of been the age-old problem. You and I have talked about it a lot, over the years. How have you started to, at a really practical level, bring the love, create the happy marriage, and create that alignment? Because I think it's one of those things that falls into the camp of easier said than done. When you talk about it, it's really logical, but when you actually do it day to day, and it sounds like, and correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, that alignment sounds like it's one component of what's created the success. So I'm curious, how? Did you bash their heads together or? No.
I think, from the beginning, we kind of had a lot of constraints with rolling this out. Firstly, it was marketing rolling this out. Usually any sort of go-to-market technology in our business in the past had been either rolled out by IT or by sales or sales development. And so this was the first time it was a marketing-led initiative. And the last thing I wanted was a bunch of marketers telling sales how to do their craft. I've been in sales. I know what it's like, as a seller, that, everyone else is an expert in sales except, and likes to have an opinion. And so very early on, I wanted to make sure that we built a cross-functional team and including salespeople in that, and to really understand their world, their challenges, their needs right from the beginning, and have they had a voice at the table during the, even pre-rollout and during the implementation. We then really focused on training up some champions, and it was like a train the trainer approach that we rolled out. So once we intensely trained some key salespeople, they were the ones that then led the user groups. They led the catch ups and the training for the rest of the organization. And that, I think, was really important, because for a seller to see another peer show how they're using the tool in their daily work and what success they're getting and what's worked for them, that's more believable than someone not in their department.
It almost creates that element of FOMO, because it's like, oh, I want a piece of that action.
Exactly. And the other thing, talking about FOMO, is I intentionally kept the license count low to begin with, because I wanted sellers to bite my arm off for a license. I wanted sellers to see other people succeed, and for them to really for it to be more of a pull effect than a roll out a tool. Good luck, guys. Here, everyone gets one, and go and use this new tool. I wanted it to be exciting and something that people actually wanted, rather than being forced upon them. And in my opinion, in any sales organization, you've got more mature sellers, and then you've got people that don't have a portfolio, that are more your hunter profile. For any new technology, you got to have kind of the right mindset for people wanting to test test and learn and adopt and do something different. Because if what you're doing works for you, you probably don't need to have a new tool to use. So that was also part of the reason why we had some good adoption and good success, is the people that actually got the licenses really wanted them and really wanted to embrace exploring a new way of prospecting and identifying new accounts they could talk to.
How did you pick those people? Did you pick based on, okay, like you just said, these people are really good at testing and experimenting? Or was there like hey, you've got to put your hand up and create that FOMO if we've only got a few and, are you going to be committed? How did you create that and that commitment then, that if you're one of the lucky golden tickets, that you'll then, this is your part of the story?
So we asked the sales leaders to nominate people in their team, and we created a profile, like an ideal profile of a seller that we thought would be, a great champion. And so these people had to be tech curious, tech savvy. They didn't necessarily need to be, digitally native. The younger generation, some more experienced sellers were very curious and wanted to also jump on the initiative. But we also wanted them to be happy to share their success stories and to share how they're using the tool. And the success story part is actually really key. We created like a community on Teams, or you could use Slack, to really every week we shared success stories, how someone booked a meeting, how someone got an advance, how someone got a referral due to reading some signals, and by identifying the right person or the right account to speak to. And all of that information sharing created a bit of that FOMO, but also created more willingness for the people that had a license to also then jump on and get their own success with the tools.
And inspiration to each other to be like, I hadn't even thought about that, or like, oh God, I've been meaning to do that and forgotten. So it kind of keeps you on track a little bit, that sharing piece.
Yeah. And salespeople are naturally competitive, right? So
obviously
if someone else is, getting some good results, then, other people want that too.
Yeah. Want a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
And we should actually just address, like we're talking about the platform. In your instance, it was Sixth Sense, and obviously there's multiple platforms out there. But I guess for anyone who's going, what are you guys talking about? Can you give us like a top line of what the platform enabled you to do?
Sure. So yes, and there are several providers out there that you can use. For us, what we essentially brought in was a sales module and also a marketing module. And what it at the top line, it gives us a view of the signals that are being generated by accounts out in the market when they're doing research for a particular topic. So we feed in our key topics. Like, for us, financial services, leasing, technology, technology brands or technology usage, life cycle services, all of those kind of keywords that mean something to us, but also branded search terms. And we're not talking about search as in someone typing in a Google search. We're talking keywords that are tagged to consumption of assets or registration of a webinar or reading an article in the Financial Times. So all of those signals are tracked, and there's billions of them per day that get tracked. And then the technology basically de-anonymizes the signal to the account at the domain level, so that you then know when your ICP customer is searching for keywords that are relevant to you. You also know when they've been on your website. And so those signals are really key to be able to then create segments to target them with advertising or to outreach at the right time. Because in sales, obviously, timing is sometimes everything, and you could be knocking on someone's door for years and years, especially in enterprise B2B sales, and they're just not ready to buy. And so these signal-based tools help you identify when a customer is in market to buy. And for us, because we really want to be focused, we don't want to just do a spray and pray approach for our outreach or our marketing, our digital advertising, because it's a waste of money. And so we can then build a very clinically a focused list of accounts that we really want to put our message in front of. And then we can see the behavior as they bounce through the journey, as they engage with the ads, as they land on the website. And, those signals are then fed into a dashboard that the sales team can see. And, it really then shows and demonstrates what contribution marketing is doing from a performance marketing perspective. And then sales can see those signals and identify when the right time is to reach out and have a conversation.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that there's a shift for me with sales in terms of, I think if we went out to most people in sales, and I would include myself in this, if you went back, a couple of years ago and talked about signals or intent data, we'd all be like, what are you talking about? Who gives the monkeys? They read the blog. It's like they've got a pulse. And I think it's an interesting shift. Like I was building last night one of our target lists for something we're going to work on. And I was working through LinkedIn Navigator, and they do the intent data linked to your profile, your website, all that sort of stuff. And it's like you filter by hot through to cold, and we're going to go hot first based on that intent data.
Yes.
And I think that for me, I actually stopped and caught myself and was like, I would not have done this probably even 18 months ago. I think it's kind of a real shift that's come in. And like you said, because the buying journey has changed.
Yeah.
So did you have to educate your sales team around that so that they weren't like, I'm sorry, we're doing what now?
Yeah.
Like, they read a blog, congratulations.
Yeah. Well, like ultimately, I think signals are just another, another indicator, right? So I don't think we should be living and dying by intent signals, because, even though someone's doing a lot of research, then they don't necessarily and sometimes we get false positives with signals, right? Especially, in universities, right? There's a lot of people doing a lot of research in universities. And at first we were like, this university is doing research on our topic. And then we thought, no, they're not.
Damn.
Yeah. So, and you have to learn how to interpret the data and then correlate it with other things, other touch points, other engagements with that account. Like when you've got, different channels operating at the same time, you've got to then correlate all of that as part of.
Did you do lead scoring with that as well? So you considered other factors to then lead score from it?
Not yet, but we are developing that now.
Ooh.
So yes, that is coming. So we're right now redeveloping our whole sort of lead to opportunity process on how we capture our leads, how we nurture them, and how we score them through all of our different activities, because we're rolling out a new instance of our CRM, and that is absolutely going to be part of it. So the intent signals will come in, and we will have, whatever segment or campaign has been served to that account, that will then show up in the CRM as whether they're a hot account or or they've engaged with certain campaigns. So it's coming.
Love it. All part of the journey. So I've got to ask you, I think, like we mentioned before, a lot of people are going on an ABM journey, and I think I've seen varying degrees of success, and like you keep using the word of the podcast is journey, and I think sometimes it comes down to that execution. You've started to share with us a few factors that I think have made it a successful execution, by the sounds of it, of picking the right people, having that loop of sharing, creating the marketing alignment. But are there any other factors that you feel made your ABM journey so successful and such strong results in terms of actually, I feel like what you've done is what so many people are trying to do. Yeah. And even already, you've seen the proof in the pudding. So it's like, how do you execute on that? And what would you share with others?
Firstly, we really had executive buy-in and really strong executive support, right from our chief sales officer to all of the executive vice presidents of sales globally. We're really invested in the success of this program, and we throughout the project made it a really key part of our operating rhythm to continue to keep our leaders involved in updates and sharing successes and milestones. And we had a specific leadership communication strategy. And that also helped drive and for them to champion the change from the top. And I think the way that we executed this project in a and I think you're going to ask me about my framework later, but that really was the key to the success of really trying to simplify the execution of this and to drive this change. I've been involved in lots of transformation, and being in a technology finance organization, like we're always changing, this change is constant. And sometimes we get into the habit of involving too many people, making projects too complex and too bloated, and then we slow things down, and then it just like execution suffers. And for me, it was really important to keep things lean. We really leaned into agile methodologies on how we rolled out this project, and kept meetings short, kept communication, like kind of based on agile principles, and that was really, I think, a key to the success of the program.
And that's so interesting, because you've mentioned there around change, and obviously change from the top, even just how it was communicated. And I think that what's interesting is, I think sometimes we can go, like you said, you mentioned it before, we can just all get a piece of new tech and we get excited. Yeah. And a lot of the people I speak to, their usage of it is minimal. You can put in the tech, but it doesn't mean anyone's using it. And I like how you seem to, it feels like you've adopted it really as like a change management program. And like you just started to reference, you put a bit of a framework around that change management. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So after we rolled out the program, I was actually asked by Sixth Sense to speak on this topic, and I reflected on it, and I actually realized there was like a bit of a framework that I put in place. Before we really rolled it out, I wanted to make sure that we keep things simple and tight, and not go into crazy amounts of scope creep, and just ship fast, deliver value quickly. And so Agile was something that I really wanted to implement. I'd always been mates with the IT team, so, have seen successful projects roll out in that way. And so we... that was sort of key. So we had like a weekly sort of scrum, but it was actually a written scrum. So it was a communication on what did we do this week? What did we do last week? What are we planning on doing next week? And what are any challenges or roadblocks? That was designed to be consumed in 5 minutes, and that was given to everyone, all stakeholders, sales, marketing, leadership. Then our weekly project meetings were 30 minutes only, and on that weekly project meeting, we only made decisions. So there was no updates, because the updates were already given in the 5-minute update. We put an agenda together of these are the decisions we need to make this week, and everyone came. We had a cross-functional team. We walked through the decisions that need to be made and then moved on. And it was super efficient. And then on a monthly basis, we did a leadership communication. And rather than get leaders from around the world onto a call, we recorded a 10-minute video to our leaders. And so what that meant was they knew what was going on, they could consume it in their own time, and the communication was key. And so that agile framework around structured operating rhythm and communication was key. Then it was around piloting and testing and learning. And so the pilot was really, for us, we wanted to prove value and have demonstrated impact before we wanted to do a global rollout. And that meant we didn't have to invest so much at the beginning. We were able to measure the return on investment very quickly before we then were ready to scale. When we did the pilot, we did all of our user documentation, all our training videos. We created a whole section on our intranet on, how-to videos, and we, recorded a lot of the user catch-ups as well for people to be able to watch and learn. That through the pilot was and working in partnership with sales on how are you using the tool, what questions do you have, enabled us to build all of that content out. So then we could then share it for the wider rollout. The other thing was really key around communicating through storytelling. And I told you about, communicating the wins. So we had a sales channel where every week we would share the wins and successes. And from a marketing perspective, we kept it more relevant to the results, not here are the, you know, the impressions and clicks, but why do we think this happened? What are things that we're seeing with the creatives? Which ones are working? What markets may be performing better? And so we were exploring the why behind the results as well. And then lastly, it's really about measuring the metrics for really proving out the success. So we did we created a global dashboard and shared the results not only with the global marketing community but with leadership as well. So yeah, it was a structured way to roll it out, but we managed to roll it out globally. In the end, we ended up with 135 licenses globally. So across, I think it was about 24 countries we rolled out. So I think within the first 6 months, we did 30 to 40 campaigns that we launched globally as well. So yeah, it was a lot. And I had a team, it was me and a team of 2 that was supporting me in marketing. And then our expanded project team was 8 people. So it really wasn't a huge resource investment.
I have so many questions, but I think I'm going to narrow down my top 2. I have 20, but I'm trying my best. One thing I want to ask you about is several times there you mentioned experimenting.
Yes.
And as you know, I'm pretty obsessive about this because I think if you look at businesses who are doing well right now, there is that level of experimenting. And I think sometimes, again, that comes to easier said than done. How did you kind of embed that level of the team? So you gave an example of experimenting on different creatives. How did you kind of empower, but also bring that to fruition? Because it's all well and good us going, let's experiment, but no one wants to be seen as failing in inverted commas. How did you bring that to reality?
I think we had some markets that were really more willing to experiment with different campaigns and different creatives. We've got a fantastic team in Central Europe who are really strong in performance marketing. So they really jumped on and tried different things, and they could see the value straight away. Here in Australia, we had some really interesting campaigns that did really well. In Canada, and I think, and then we had a global brand awareness campaign that we rolled out, and we learned a lot through that. I think we rolled out 13 countries within 6 weeks, and it was a big learning curve for us. And I'm really big on trying to create a culture of test and learn and experiment, and it's okay to fail, and it's easier for us to try something and learn from it than not try and not learn, or what's worse, spend 8 months trying to get something perfect and then it really not landing either. So I prefer to just test and experiment and just get stuff out there, and then we never know what's going to go viral. We never know what's going to, in the land of social media, some people like really polished, nice stuff. Some people like humor. Some people like something that really pokes the bear. And I think that right now, in this sea of sameness and AI created content, it's important to just be more human and to try to be more emotional and be a little different. And so, experimentation is key, I think, for anyone in marketing.
Yeah, I love that and couldn't agree more. The other piece I really want to continue teasing out, which we've already started talking about, is I feel like you've managed to fix one of the poison chalices, which is that you look at any of the data points on sales, that they feel overwhelmed by technology. They've got all the tools and tech, but the usage of it is relatively low. I always use that analogy of you've got the Ferrari in the garage. And it's interesting when you're talking about it, because I almost have in my head, I can think of companies who would be screaming right now, yeah, but we did the training tools, we did the how-to, but we did the team announcements, we did the communication, but yet the team still didn't pick up what we were putting down. And so do you think there's anything for you, like if you were advising someone else who's embarking on this journey, and like you said, it's not just about tech, it's change management, how you get that adoption from sales, because it feels like it's been picking the right salespeople, communication stories. But if you were coaching someone right here, right now, who's like, yeah, but I did all that and it didn't work, like, what do you feel that secret sauce is? Because I feel you've broken that poison chalice that so many people can't break right now, which is getting that adoption from sales.
I think what surprised us during the process was like we did all the training, and we did the groups training, and we did the videos and all of that. And then we decided to have one-on-ones with the users. And that's where we really learnt, everyone learns differently and everyone absorbs different things. And we only during the one-on-one process did we understand that some people still had issues logging in, or some people didn't know that one thing was a feature that they could do. And so that next level down of actual one-on-one conversations of show me how you're using it and show me what you're doing was a real eye-opener. And I think that really helped us activate more, because I think communication is one of the hardest things for any company to get right. And we all think we communicate enough, but we don't realize that what actually gets absorbed is very little. People skim over things. They either don't read it, or they read the first few lines and skip. Or then they attend a training call, but they may be writing emails. And so the level of absorption, or, even like the forgetting curve is real, right? And so we did a lot of reinforcement, and it was the one-on-ones that made us understand what needed to be reinforced, because we could then identify the gaps, and then we went back and did more calls on certain topics, or we did more tips on a particular feature that we didn't think people really got. And so that, I think, was the key for us to really understand that, people learn in different ways.
That is such a good secret sauce of like going that next level down with the one-to-ones. Because in my head as you were talking, I could just feel certain people would be screaming like, we tried that. Yeah. You mentioned that really surprised you, and I can imagine, is there anything else on this journey that you felt sort of really surprised you in terms of outcomes or results on the journey?
I think that was probably the biggest thing, just surprising, like the surprising nature of how people adopted, and how people learnt and how people absorbed what was being communicated. I think I can't really think of anything else that really surprised me. The results, I think I knew that it would work, but I didn't expect it to work so well so quickly.
Did you have a moment like, whew?
Well, I think it was more like, well, how can we now amplify this? How can we do more? How can we really, get more people on board? But I also learnt that I need to temper my enthusiasm, because I've got other things I need to do in my job. So this will be an ongoing thing for us to really continue to drive adoption and look at, what kind of ways do we want to expand usage or get more value out of this data and the signals that we're getting. And this is where, the CRM implementation is key to that as a next step.
If you could do it all again and have your time again, I'm sure you want to relive it, the good and the bad. Yeah. What would be sort of some of your top non-negotiables, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping things lean and, target teams, small teams, keeping it agile. The operating rhythm of, embracing that agile methodology was really key to our success. And that leadership communication, really getting them to understand what we're trying to achieve, to buy into the fact that marketing and sales need to align on the same set of accounts. That I think is key to the success.
I like the fact as well, personally, that you really adopted it also as the change management aspect to it.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the time we can get excited around, yay, new tech, here's your licenses, or whatever it might be, or like, yay, you were doing ABM. But I like the fact, the framework that you talked to and how you treated it as that change management program. I feel like that, I don't know, outsider's perspective might have also been some of the magic.
Yeah. And you know, I didn't actually go into this project creating a framework up front. I retrospectively then looked back and went, oh, this is kind of like a 7-step framework that I'm happy to also share with you know, notes or whatever. But I think keeping things structured with any change is hard, right? People don't like changing the way they do things. They feel like what they're doing is working, and rather than having change pushed on people, it's like I prefer pulling people in and drawing them in, and the best way to do it is with drawing them in with, you know, emotion, like as in stories, storytelling, showing wins, getting that whole FOMO going, and keeping things scarce. I think was really key, and just really being willing to sit next to salespeople and understand what you know, what are some of their challenges, so that we can then align and map to what we could help them solve.
I like that, keeping it scarce, and the FOMO thing we keep referring back to as well. I notice it with our programs, the difference between people who email us going, sorry, did I get put on this program? Like, I'm sorry, what? And they didn't sort of really know, and they've been, you know, voluntold, versus then the opposite of then people where it's like, hey, we've got like 5 seats on the bus or whatever it might be, who wants to do it, you know, and it being that real piece of like, oh, yeah, no, how can I actually fight for my place on this program, and that scarcity, and, you know, I want a piece of it, and it's desirable.
Yeah.
And I notice a different, therefore, you are going to show up, you are going to be committed, because, you know, you've been handpicked and selected.
Yeah.
So I really like that you guys embrace that as well. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want to roll out something and for then only 40% of it being adopted. And that's not only, you know, a waste of resources, you know, a waste of money, but, you know, when you really think about the types of activities that go on across the sales team, not everyone really needed a license. Obviously, everyone in marketing did, because we really use the platform to structure our advertising strategy for our audiences and segmentation. But from a seller's perspective, we really had that profile very clear. It's like when you're creating an ideal customer profile and a persona, you want to understand who you're messaging to, and you know, why, what drives them. Like, we really thought about what is that sales persona that we felt would really get the best value out of this tool.
I like that. I like that a lot. There's just a lot of intention in what you're saying. So if you were mentoring a revenue leader, and we just sort of like, you know, we're gonna pimp you out to the audience and offer them an opportunity to speak to you and mentor someone who's about to embark on some shape or form of, you know, big marketing, sales, transformation journey. What do you think, you know, there's so many pieces of this. I think I can think of 12 off the top of my head that we've covered. What do you think your big piece of advice would be?
Firstly, I think it's really important to talk to people and really build relationships at the leadership level, but also the people on the ground. I think if you're a new revenue leader, and if you haven't spent enough time out in front of a customer, you really need to. You need to understand the customers to understand the world that sales operate in. So by being able to speak the same language, and you've got to build trust first. And people aren't going to follow change if they don't trust the person trying to lead the change. And I think building that level of trust first is important. Understanding what drives them and what are their key measures, what are they trying to achieve, and then really creating a intentional change management process, and a lot of that is around communication and being very deliberate in involving people and being willing to adapt as well. You know, that was the other reason why we embraced Agile, is we didn't pre-plan this complete implementation strategy from the beginning. We were willing to pivot and move a little bit according to how we saw the results play out. And so that was important to be able to take the feedback on and then shift and change what we needed to then have a successful global rollout.
Yeah. Well, I think some of the results that you guys achieved, and obviously we've talked about it offline as well, are some of the strongest I've ever heard. Hence why I was really keen to unpack it with you. And, you know, congratulations, seriously, because I think what you've pulled off, so many people are on that journey of and trying to do. And I think there's so many points you've talked about today that I think really actually help capture some of the magic that you built. So yeah, definitely a project to be proud of, a good career defining one.
Yeah, I'm super proud. I'm proud of my team that helped me. I had a fantastic project lead that was owning this product, and I think that we're still on the journey, right? I can't sit here and say we did it. We're the best at this. Like we had fantastic results and we've learned a lot, and we could still do better, right? There's still ways to improve, but I'm really happy with where we've landed, and the organization has really embraced this, and you know, couldn't be prouder of the team.
Love that. So I have to give you our closing question, which I love asking, and it's mainly just for my own geek out.
Sure. Business
book. What is your favorite business book? Or maybe it's the book that you recommend the most.
Oh my goodness. Oh, there are so many.
I knew this one would be a good one for you.
Oh my God. Well, I think in the context of go-to-market, there's a couple that recently kind of really turned my head. One that kind of made me think about what's possible with technology in sales is Tech Powered Sales by Justin Michael and Tony Hughes, our own Australian Tony Hughes. That really made me go, oh, wow, I really want to build this kind of stuff. The other one recently that I have just read the book and then listened to the book and then even did the course is Revenue Architecture by Jaco van der Kooi. It really made me think about that entire value chain view of how we can create an understanding of what actually drives growth, and especially in a recurring revenue business like for SaaS companies. But our business is, you know, we're in leasing, where we're a recurring revenue business. I can apply those principles to our business where we can essentially architect and engineer all those different moments and inflection points that drive growth. So that has really got my head in a spin lately. So
I need to order that one. You told me about that, and this is just prompted me. I'm like, I need to read that.
It's like a textbook that you would have read at uni. It's really, and it's full of maths.
Oh gosh. Okay, I might need a coffee before that one.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much. You have been phenomenal and very generous in sharing your story. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure, Abbie. Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe and follow so that you get our unfiltered conversations every single week.